Hey guys, it's ArchieLuxury. ArchieLuxury from the ArchieLuxury channel, the Paul Pluta channel, and ArchieLuxury corporate. Guys, keep watching. Keep watching. I need the viewers. I need the viewers. I need the subs. I need it. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends. Tell your friends, whether you like them or hate them. Just tell them anyhow. ArchieLuxury on YouTube. Hey guys, ArchieLuxury channel. Today I'm going to make the video, how did Rolex get the #1 spot? And what I mean by #1 spot is, I'm not saying Rolex is the best watch in the world. What I'm saying is Rolex is a very much high in demand. It's got mass market appeal. It's actually a pretty mass-produced watch when you compare the numbers of production to, say, Patek, AP, Vacheron, or even Jaeger-LeCoultre or Lange. But it has massive appeal. Everybody seems to want a Rolex. You can't get a Rolex for love or money from the AD. What is the situation? How did this happen? So, firstly, we've got to go back in time. We've got to go back in time, and the honest answer is Rolex was kind of not really it was not really part of the Swiss club. Rolex, Hans Willdorf invented this brand. He trademarked a number of brand names, and Rolex was one he went with because it could be pronounced easily, and they weren't even considered real Swiss. It's kind of fascinating how this evolved there. They got a company to make the movements. The company to make the movements for them later on exclusively, and then Rolex themselves there took over these keys to production. Now, we go back. Let's go back. When did watch collecting sort of become a thing? And it's a hobby that started to take face. If we look at after World War II, there was massive shortages, massive supply problems. So watch collecting itself, it started to really kick forward. In the 50s and 60s, people just wanted a good watch. And it's fascinating. Even in the 70s, you serviced your Patek, they'd actually lend you, sometimes they would lend you, they had a steel ellipse they would lend you so you could wear something when your watch was away at service. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I gotta tell you it's the collecting thing really started to kick off. I remember myself in Brisbane, small town Brisbane. It's sort of the third largest city in Australia. I'd never seen second-hand watch dealers. They didn't exist. This is the 80s and 90s. It really didn't kick on until the interweb started really booting it up. Before then, you bought new, and pawn shops kind of sold them, but that was a bit of a sleazy sort of stores, you know. So it really, watch collecting itself came to its own 80s, 90s, and this is kind of when the quartz crisis was in the 70s. So it was kind of after these times, that's when more people started collecting. I gotta be honest with you, let's go back in a time machine. In the late 90s, I had a collection. I had a five-piece. Five seems to be the number for me. 5-piece combo deal. What did I have in Rolex? Well, what did I have? I had a Rolex day date, an 18238. I had an Explorer 2, 16570 Polar. I had a sub date, 16610. It's a steel date sub. I had a Datejust 16013, two-tone plastic. And I had as a beta, a 16800 sub. That was my 5 pieces. And a lot of people, they said, oh, why would you have a Rolex? The mentality at the time, people I liked Rolex because I'd always loved Rolex. I was never in the crowd. And I gotta tell you, at that time, late 90s, early 2000s, if you were a sophisticated collector, the really big collectors, they collected Panerai. That's what they did. Pams. There was limited edition Pams you could get, and they were kind of investment grade watches. Breitling was very popular. Tudor was dogs. They were ugly. They had some ugly in the late 90s, early 2000s. They had things like the Hydronaut, the Iconaut. They had some really ugly Tudors. So Tudor was nowhere serious. Omega was a big player. Yes, Omega was a big player. So, you know, in the late 90s, if you were a sophisticated collector, you had a couple of Pams, maybe one Rolex, an IWC, a Jaeger LeCoultre of some sort. Many collections that people had were way smaller in the 90s and early 2000s. People didn't have the number of people now who have 10 plus watches is, now when I say 10 plus, I'm not talking about garbage. I'm talking good stuff, not garbage. Garbage is garbage. But collections were smaller. So a sophisticated collector, he'd have a Pam, an IWC, he'd have Jaeger LeCoultre, he'd maybe have one Rolex, but often no Rolex. He'd gone through the Rolex curve. I remember reading an article on Rolex forums where somebody traded in their A serial number Rolex Sea Dweller to get a PAM 24, because I had a PAM 24. That's why I was searching it out, any articles on the PAM 24. And the PAM 24, that was a submersible submariner with an ETA. It had a modified Valjoux 7750 movement. Very noisy movement. Why would you sell a Sea Dweller to get a PAM? The mentality was totally different. Even people on the Rolex forum were saying, yeah, I understand why you do that. He had to put money in to get the PAM 24. And this is the whole thing. It was a completely different ball game. And it was a number of factors that caused the anomaly to change. And I'll go into a few of those a bit later. But I gotta tell you, seriously, there were a number of key factors that happened. And in the 90s, Rolex was late 90s. Rolex was kind of a brand for non-watch people. If you were successful in business, yeah, you bought a Rolex. Yeah. The funny thing is, at this time period too, you didn't have the size issues. You had a 36-day date. That was it. There was no 40 mil. There was no. You had in President Day dates. The ladies was a Datejust, so that was the 26 mil. You had a mid-size, which was still a Datejust. And you had the 36 mil. That was it. The president refers to the bracelet. So you could get those three watches there in president bracelets. The whole thing is, it changed, and it wasn't overnight. It was a slow change, but it was quick. It was very quick. From 2000 to 2010, there were a number of factors that happened, and this is the story of Rolex itself. There, this is the story of what happened, and it's got luck, it's got corporate greed, it's got a number of factors which made Rolex the gold standard in watches. And I got to tell you, it's funny, you look back, when I was collecting Rolexes in the late 90s, that was kind of a bit of an oddball thing to do. It was, oh, why would you do that? One's enough, surely. And it's an interesting thing. I've always been a bit of a loner, a lone wolf. I've collected what I like. I haven't really needed validation from so-called friends or fellow collectors. I buy what I want, and it is a fascinating journey. It is very fascinating. So let's continue the series. This is another installment. I'm Paul Pluto, the method actor who plays Archie Luxury. Keep watching, and these will be coming out in a series. See you later, guys. Hey guys, I've got some exciting promotion news for you. David SW's just sent me a press release. Archie, we just launched the new website this week, and we have a sale going on now until Monday with $375 off. If you can give me a plug, that will be great. David SW. I gotta tell you guys, if you want to buy a Rolex, if you want to buy a luxury wristwatch, where would I go? If I was in America, North America, where would I go? There's only one place I would go. David SW. He is one of the most trusted names in the wristwatch market. Forget building a relationship with your AD. It ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. Forget licking the backside of your ADs, and you know, that's just wasted time. My best advice is, if you are looking for a Rolex, if you're looking for a Rolex from an honest, good business, go to David SW. I gotta tell you honestly, I would say David SW. Happy Thanksgiving from David SW. Save $375. Cannot be used with any other promotion, fair enough. Jewelry discount is 10% for the duration of the promotion. Expires midnight on the 30th of the 11th. David SW, go and check out the new website. Go and see the bargains they've got. Guys, seriously, if you want a Rolex, make it happen. Forget AD waiting lists. Forget all that nonsense. Go to David SW, America's. This is the dealer I would go to. Don't waste your time buying, trying to get kudos from the AD. Go and see David SW with $375 off your purchase. This sale will not last. David SW, check out the new website. Tell me what you think, guys. I want to know what you guys think. I want to hear it from you guys. Tell me what you think of the new look David SW website. I tell you what, it's feature-packed. It's got punch. I love the new video at the front. Man, David SW. I love you, David SW. I trust you 100%. I recommend you to countless people. I love you, David SW. Hey guys, Archie Luxury. Who do I recommend for watches in Brisbane and Sydney? Vintage Watch Co. That's correct. Vintage Watch Co. in Brisbane Arcade in Brisbane and the Strand Arcade in Sydney. Vintage Watch Co. Brisbane and Sydney. Ronnie, I've known him since the late 90s. Ronnie is a top bloke. Luke is a great guy. Vintage Watch Co. That is who I recommend in Australia. Check out Vintage Watch Co. and the guys' amazing range of watches. They also do service and repairs. Vintage Watch Co. That is where the Pontiff goes. You know, some of my Pateks came from Vintage Watch Co. That's right, guys. Vintage Watch Co. Hi guys, Archie Luxury. And who do I recommend in America? In America, who do I recommend for quality pre-owned wristwatches? David SW, David SW, David SW. Go to davidsw.com. He is the best, the greatest pre-owned dealer in all of the United States of America. David SW, David SW, David SW.